Hello, friends. Juesto Enrico here. Juesto de Taquiendo de Famioso de Peopleobles, also known as Talking with Famous People. And I'm live streaming on a Saturday morning. Now, historically, Saturday mornings are not particularly great times to live stream, but I'm hopeful that I'll attract some participants nevertheless. Good morning, Planet Catch Up, and hello, Bob Albert. Pleasure to see you here. So, on this Saturday morning, the official topic is typing communication, different ways that different types communicate, and how that can cause some confusion. However, anything you want to talk about is fine, as always. These things rarely stay much on topic. Tells you about INTPs. Well, INTPs, specifically in regards to their communication style, can be very similar to ENTPs. And depending on the context, can seem extroverted, like a lot of introverts, because they've got an extroverted tool function. And if you are an introverted knower, you have an extroverted interface function. But if you're an introverted judger, then you have an extroverted action function. And so that's what the INTP is. They're probably going to seem more introverted than a lot of types, although I would say probably NITE will seem even more introverted. But the NE can come out in performance capacities a lot. So there are some very good INTP musicians. I've got a friend who's an INTP, who's a very good musician, good songwriter, good artist, and he uses that extroverted intuition every time he performs. But the rest of the time, he's often not so extroverted. Is the live stream going to end suddenly again, leaving me? No, that's a weather-related thing. All of Laverne has been having problems with electricity, and so what was happening yesterday when the rain was happening was that the electricity would cut off abruptly for a minute or something, or 30 seconds, and then, or not even that long, so it was like 5 seconds, but then it would be enough to reset the internet thing. So I think that's fine. It's a sunny day today. We're not seeming to have any more of the lights flickerings issue and other sort of electricity issues that caused the live stream to die yesterday. Hello, El Sadat. How are you this morning? One way of understanding communication style is by understanding the way in which people talk about other people and their expectations of them. So, would you two be fine with what? With me smoking weed? I'm assuming. I mean, it's legal where I live. Nothing wrong with it. So, I don't know. I've never heard anybody say anything about it. I don't think it violates community standards. So, right. Well, I'll do a little bit of that, Mad Biscuit. So, in regards to the communication style, one thing that caused me to want to make that topic is talking to Kimberly this morning about her expectations. And so she's somewhat critical of Ruben sometimes because he's not doing what she thinks he ought to be doing in terms of pursuing a Bible course for him. But I was trying to explain to Kimberly that she can't really know that. She's got in her head what sort of like she would do if she were in his situation, but his situation is not hers and never will be, and she can't really understand all the different vectors that come into play with him. And regardless, attention that we direct towards what other people ought to be doing is somewhat limited. Ruben's an ESFJ, is somewhat limited in terms of its efficacy. I mean, we can impact other people to some extent and kind of motivate them or to some extent control what they do, right? But I've noticed that Kimberly's very into comparing against an ideal rather than against realities or alternatives. So, like, I see Ruben as doing a pretty good job overall with his situation and shit he's got going on and stuff he's pursuing and yada, yada, yada. Because I'm comparing it against, like, the alternative, what it was before, perhaps, or how an average person might approach this. Whereas she's comparing it against her ideal. She's thinking in her head, well, I think that Ruben ought to be Hello, Walter Wiseman. So I can just bridge with all the any possibilities. Right. So, I mean, it's useful for me to talk through this stuff and explain some things. She was also telling me this morning how she experiences going into a store and how it gives her this rush of, I guess, dopamine and adrenaline or something to go into a store. And that she'll walk down the aisles and she'll look at each of the objects and she'll imagine how she might incorporate that into her house. And then she'll maybe put it in her basket. And then she'll go around and she'll get a bunch of stuff in her basket. And then she'll gradually put things back as she ideates out that, oh, that wouldn't go with this other thing. And that's how she both doesn't spend too much money and gets her store fix, her like dopamine rush or whatever it is she gets out of it. It seems so strange to me because, I mean, objects always serve ideation for me. They're not the channel of ideation, but for Kimberly, they're the channel of ideation. When she's ideating, she's not ideating about ideas. She's ideating about, this would look nice on my wall, or, ooh, I know I could move this thing over there and I could put this up over there and reorganize like this. That's her ideational stuff. Or, ooh, I know I want a chicken coop. I want Eric to build it, you know? So it was interesting for me to hear that. And obviously it plays into the notion that she's seeking any. And so when she's receiving it based on her own ability to ideate off of objects, in other words, her any's working almost exclusively off SESI. It's going, this is what I know about my house right now, which I have a clear sense of where everything is and how everything's arranged. Which she does. She knows where, like, if I move something, you know, I'm going to get it. I'm going to hear about it. I had this random piece of crap that nobody would remember in the left corner of this drawer, Eric. Well, what did you do with it? I mean, that piece of string or whatever? I think I used it to tie something. She's like, I was saving that for if I happen to encounter this other thing 7 years from now, I might want to use that. I remember she got mad at me for using a piece of wood that we had salvaged from the trash because she might want to use it for something in the future. Because it was a good piece of wood. I'm like, Kimberly, we picked this out of somebody's trash. I we'll get it more of it if we need to. It's not that hard to find one of these things. So, good afternoon, Sheila. Brenda, hey, Sheila. Hi, Brenda Lee. So, yeah, I mean, people do communicate differently. And I think for most types of people, for most sensors, probably there's not a lot of adjustment in communicative style between when you're dealing with different people. Probably it's true even for intuitives as well. I'm learning to communicate more effectively with Kimberly and to be more effectiveness minded in my communications. So that's kind of like a shift to TE values in a way, because it's me not focusing on the correctness of things, but focusing on Kimberly's outcomes. In other words, for me to get something across to Kimberly in a way that doesn't seem critical of her at all, so that she can engage with ideas, because she doesn't engage with criticism very well. Is the ideal based off of characteristics that person has exhibited, or just based off what she believes to be an ideal person in general? The ideal is based off what she believes the other person ought to be doing. She's got a vision in her head of, if I were in this situation, I would be doing this, and or this person is in this role of mine, and I envision that role being filled like this. So we had some of this conflict at the beginning of our relationship, or earlier in the relationship, because she'd have a clear vision about what I was supposed to be doing as a boyfriend. This is what boyfriends are supposed to be doing. And some of the stuff I would like, when I would be excelling in certain areas as a significant other, I wouldn't get any credit for it. And when I'd fail in those same areas, then I'd probably get my chops busted. But then again, I'd be not failing in it all, but it'd be failing to meet some expectation of hers in some other area, and I'd get my chops busted for that. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. I shouldn't have to do that thing, or whatever it is. So we had a lot of trouble at first, because I was taking her to be somebody who was trying to interact with me, like fairly and communicatively, and just doing a terrible job of it, when in actuality she was never trying to do that in the first place, and she didn't really know what she was doing. And I needed to understand that I shouldn't take her words seriously in general when she's upset, and I need to focus on her emotions, not her arguments. Her arguments are absolutely terrible when she's emotional. But that's what I mean by ideal, is she's got it in her own head, some notion of how it ought to be. It's a very judgy approach to life in some capacity, but she's growing from that. She's engaging in a lot of self understanding, I think, that she didn't have before. And I think it's fair to attribute it to having a cognitive function lexicon of some sort to use. So, for example, she talks about FE in a much more sophisticated way than when I first met her. When I first met her, she said things like, I know I shouldn't care so much about what other people think. And I said, no, you should and necessarily will. It's your tool function, and that's just how shit rolls. It's not inherently bad to care about what other people think. That's just a FI advice. It's like an abusive kind of cognitive function bias that's being pushed. Like, how many times do you think in the world have ENFJs given the following advice? You need to stop living in the past. SI DOMs. Do you think that happens probably every day all across America? Some ENFJ with polar SI tells some SI DOM like Kimberly, you need to stop living in the past. Well, of course, the SI DOM is thinking, if they're thinking, they may just be frame walked because they have a tendency to get frame walked like that. What they should be thinking is, hold on a second, I am my past. That's who I am, is I'm comprised of everything that's happened to me heretofore. I'm an SI DOM. That's what I am. How can you say, stop living in the past? I have to. Instead, what I need to do is re-narratorize my past. I have to make new stories, and I have to spin the past in such a way that it becomes a new version of me that's more effectively realizing who I want to be and stuff, Let's see. All sounds like me. I keep things that seem crap at the moment in case it becomes useful in the future. That's probably SI up there. It's hard to say. Is it very SI to not want to do something after it's gone bad once? Yes, that's SI. To jump to conclusions that your single experience is indicative of the pattern as a whole is the SI way of bypassing NI, basically. When I talk to sensors, generally they help me with insights, but it feels like I cannot go anywhere with them unless I give up myself in terms of the interaction. I have to defer to them. In any situation, I would say, Mad Biscuit, if you want to be, we have to remember, as ENTPs, we generally don't like putting on the learner's hat. However, we always benefit when we do. And so when you're dealing with people who you think, okay, well, intellectually, they're not engaging me much, then ask more questions and get what you can out of it, and find the boundaries of where their limits lie, and walk away not caring about what impression you leave to the extent that you can. And you'll end up leaving a better impression than you think, because you're pulling some INFJ shit at that point. It's worth it. And just, you'll win the meta. You'll win the meta FE ultimately by doing that. And you'll also learn a bunch of shit, and you'll learn to utilize human resources effectively, because you're not worrying so much about how you're coming across, and you're worrying more about what you can learn about somebody else. It positions you properly in terms of FE naturally, to the extent that you're doing it. Now, granted, you're only going to do it some of the time. We'd rather pontificate. I know what I want from my significant other, but not what I think they should do. See, that's a distinction. That's a healthy distinction to make. Kimberly doesn't really make that distinction. Curtis says, at Mad Bra, what's up? That's not directed at me. That's directed at Mad. So I'm going to not answer it. Florian Bischoff says, hi. Hi, Florian Bischoff. Mad Biscuit 23. Hello, ENFJ Curtis. Curtis 96 at Mad. Lol. Were you guys trolling when you typed me ENFJ? Walter Wiseman. Challenge. Every day, walk through your rooms with a bag. Put in 10 items per day and throw or give it away. Do this with people too. You'll be out of people pretty quick. That's funny. Planet Ketchup also thinks that's funny, Walter. Here's my people bag. Let me so delicately place them so I can check it at the curb. Well, I'll tell you guys the story of my ISFJ friend and his chicken. So he has chickens, and one of his chickens died. And I asked him one day, what did you do with that? What did you do with the chicken? Did you bury it? And he's like, well, no, I very carefully, I got a box. I put some hay in the box. I laid the chicken's body on the hay. I very carefully closed the box. And then I carried the box and put it in the dumpster. And I thought, that is so TE polar, right? It makes no sense. It makes no sense except on a SIFE level. Your experience of putting the chicken in the box was what mattered, and the experience of then putting the box in the dumpster didn't matter, So to me, that seems hilarious, right? I would just either bury the chicken if I really thought it was a beloved pet, like I would bread for sure, or I would just throw it in the trash. I wouldn't go through some intermediate thing, right? But I guess he figured the chicken deserved more than just being dumped in the dumpster, and ignored the fact that being dumped in a dumpster inside of a box isn't any better or something. I don't know. It seemed odd to me. It seemed funny to me. But I guess ISFJs, it makes sense to them, and they communicate differently, and because of those sort of things, like because they're prioritizing stuff like that, they're going to run afoul of people who just want to throw the chicken in the trash. And then if you are one of those guys who wants to insist that you're right in being logical and they're being illogical, then that's where you're going to have problems in the relationship, where the guy should just at that point go, okay, well, obviously you're not engaging this on some sort of logical metric. And yet it's obviously still important to you. So I should respect your wishes and place the chicken's body neatly in a box before dumping it in the dumpster. That's if Kimberly wanted it to be done. Dave did that. Dave did that with his chicken himself because he's an ISFJ. He's a good guy. I like Dave a lot. He's one of my favorite people of all time. And, it really I didn't realize he was my dual until maybe a year ago or something. It occurred to me to try to type my friends, or maybe 2 years ago, And so once I realized he was my dual, it all made perfect sense. Even though he's 4 years older than me, we've been friends since I was 3 years old and he was 7 years old. Which is weird, right? It's like 7-year-olds don't make friends with 3-year-olds. But Dave and I were friends ever since we met, basically, and we liked each other a lot and hung out a lot, And we're still friends. And he's really the only old time childhood friend that I still have any regular contact with. So it just goes to show you the power of duality. It's not necessarily a romantic relationship. It can be a friendship as well, and be very powerful and last decades.
You're my best friend. Best friend ever.
Thanks, baby.
Not bad. 33 for a Saturday.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that, because Saturday it's hard to get people to join a live stream. Planet Ketchup says, Eric, type me. You are IENSFJB. Let's see what else we got here in the old chatteroo. Also, being charismatic isn't only characteristic to ENFJs. Correct. ENFJs can be charismatic. They can be annoying. INFJs can be very charismatic. I think ENFPs have it within them if they apply themselves to it, if they're not being douchebags, which we sometimes are.
What about ISFJs?
ISFJs are very, if you're talking about charisma as being well-liked, then ISFJs are going to be near the top, as are ESFJs. Any of the 4 FE tool dominant types are going to be the most well-liked. Charismatic.
Are they all as annoying as me?
You're not annoying, Kimberly. You're my special, precious, perfect angel. What one word would you use to describe each function axis? TIFE? It'd have to be 2 words. It would be something like universal legitimacy. SINE, timing and execution.
Waffles.
Any SI, novel departures from existing resources, or vice versa, or something. And then what's the last one? TEFI, interested attainment. Could Red grace us with some words of wisdom? That's a good question, Regulus. Let's see what she has to say. Can you see her? Where is she? Where's Red? She's over there right now. Maybe in a little bit when she comes over. She's a little bit of a prima donna, She demands certain kinds of M&Ms in her dressing room. Oh, here she is. Let's see.
No, don't grab her.
Let me just have it. Oh, everybody. Throw him in the slammer. I'm off to Red. There you go. As usual, she wants to throw everyone in the slammer. I don't know why.
No, she doesn't.
Oh, she does. She's a badass hen. She takes a peck out of crime. Hey, host Eric, can you tell us what a lack of TE can look like in INFJs and the implications of this for them? Well, I would say that the biggest implication is this. If you're an INFJ and you have artistic visions of some sort, there are certain media that require TE that can be a challenge for INFJs to master. In particular, music requires a fair amount of TE if you're doing music production. If you're a writer like J.K. Rowling or something, who's an INFJ, well, then that doesn't require a lot of TE. Using a word processing program on a computer is pretty intuitively obvious. It doesn't require a lot of, it's not a steep learning curve. So you'll be fine, and you probably won't notice it a lot. Being polar means you're not going to notice it a lot. I don't really notice the impacts, harms, goods, or whatever of having polar FI, because it's my least noted thing of all the ways I can attend. And so too with your TE if you're an INFJ, which means you don't quite get the concept of it even. Like but you get that, okay, it means how to do stuff, but you don't really have a feel for what that means in practice. And so most people are not going to be bothered very much by their polar because it's just so absent from your consideration. To the extent that it harms you, like an ENTP might be harmed by polar FI by misunderstanding how much they value something and letting it go or sacrificing it for something else they value less and regretting that a great deal. So that's plausible. There's probably an equivalent for TE, but it's going to be like, oh, if I had just tried to figure this thing out, how to do this, instead of trying to find somebody else to help show me or find some way around it or whatever, then I would have had this thing. And blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Do you know where any of your zip cords are?
Yeah, I think they're in this thing, or they're hanging on that. No, they're hanging on that pegboard over there on the other side of this. Okay. I would have suicided myself to make Goebbels smile. Okay. Let's see. ENFJ can seem annoying when surrounded by other intuitive thinker types. I don't consider you annoying, but in the chat, you're considered very fluffy and not really having a position. Yeah. Can you explain what FITE and TIFE are like as 2-3 slot axis? I mean, they're very different from each other, obviously. The former is an interested calculus with solvency that's driven by that interested calculus. So it's saying, I know what I want, and now hopefully I have enough clear enough vision so I can figure out how to get it. Because in order to know how to get what you want, you have to know clearly what it is exactly you want, and to some extent why you want it. So that's where the TEFI axis comes in. You're either prioritizing knowing how to get it or prioritizing knowing what to want, but one of those two is going to be driving your so-called judging functions, your judging and interface functions. With the TIFE, it's a legitimacy issue. The question is not one of, is this how much do I want this and how do I get it? It's, can I defend this legitimacy to the general populace, to other people, or will my words withstand scrutiny, and will I be perceived well by others and gain the benefits of, I guess, social success? You would say that's the difference. And either way, you're gonna have one of those as your tool function, one of them as your tertiary or hidden agenda function. So it's like one of them is your absolute value. For me, the absolute value is FE. That means affirmation of others, basically attention and validation from others and stuff. My tool function or instrumental value is TI, which means it's how I'm going to approach things. It's only really valuable instrumentally to the FE. If the TI doesn't serve the FE, ultimately, then I'll do something else with the TI that does. So, and then if, let's say we're FETI, well, then your FE is your tool function, means that it's the instrumental value. Having the social perceptions is instrumental to ultimately being legitimate in a way that can defend across argumentationally. And equivalently for TIFE. So, okay, let me go forward. Do you find that ST types speak more clearly and are easier to understand than other types? Meaning ISTP, ESTP, ISTJ, ESTJ. Yes, I would agree with that. Depending on what you mean by easier to understand. If you mean easier to understand, meaning more able to be understood by more people, a larger percentage of the people, then for sure. I think that sometimes it's not really possible to understand things in ways that are simple and straightforward and direct. Some ideas require more conceptual rigor than that. And in those instances, it would be difficult to understand through that modality, more difficult to understand through that modality, even though were one to do so, the expression of it might be more direct and clear. I don't know. Hopefully that satisfactorily answers the question. And then INFJ, I have noticed, just capture the attention in the chat room. It is quite incredible. Everyone wants to hear what they say, and there's a harmony that gets created. They tend to ask questions that highlight things that do that, I would say. And, the thing about the INFJ is they're asking a question, having a lot of FE&I about me and how I'm likely to respond to it. So they're, in that regard, they're managing me. They're kind of directing my attention and where it's going to play out by asking certain kinds of questions that then predictably shift my mood or attention this way or that way. Thank you, CA. I appreciate it. I think it says CA. That's your name, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but
thank you very much. Thank you.
My best friend since we were 4 years old is also an ISFJ. My sister is also ISFJ, and they're two favorite people in the world. Well, I know they're great. They're adorable and lovable and all those sorts of things. And Kimberly takes very good care of me in lots of SI ways that are really important, feeds me and stuff like that. Curtis, well, not in that specific case, just in general. And I said that's the perception people in the chat have of you. Damien says, thank you, host Eric. Thank you, Damien. For what? I don't know. You play FE games within the interaction. Yeah, that's true. Wouldn't that be SFJ? No, that would be NFJ. Oh, there. Oh, that was Planet Ketchup who gave that. Thank you, Planet Ketchup. I don't know what the CA stands for. Some tell me I'm an ENFP, others an ENTP. All say EXXP, and I'm just not satisfied with what I understand to determine between either. Oh, Canadian dollars. Oh. I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me. Well, you can find out if you're an ENTP easily enough by looking at some deductive reasoning problems and see how you deal with them. See how intuitively it seems to you to answer them. Like, do you immediately get the idea and find it no problem to deal with? Then you'll probably using TI at some place higher than ESFP or ENFP. So, I mean, it should be able to distinguish without too much difficulty that one. The distinction between the T's and the F's should be easy enough to distinguish. Here's a link. That's for some deductive reasoning problems. And those ones there, you've done that. You say lateral thinking questions as well. Try those and see how you deal with them. If they go quick and you have no problem processing them all, then you're probably one of the T's, either ESTP or ENTP. The difference between STP and ENTP can be tricky to determine because it's what can you say about it? It's like they can be pretty ideationally robust, at least in their TI, any kind of negation approach, or pretty straightforward in their affirmation approach. The ENTP is going to be more complex in their affirmation approach and more meta level in their negation approach. That's one way to think about it. If you're talking about argumentational styles, but thank you. And hopefully those questions provide you some utility. Especially with I usually, when I give people this, and this is for anybody else who's watching too, you can all grab that link. Usually if I do this, it's number 8, I think, and 13 that I ask people to do that provide some clarity as to how they approach things. Number 8 says, John asks more questions than Dan, who asks the second fewest questions. Bob asks more questions than Dan, but not as many as George, who doesn't ask the most questions. Mary's also there asking questions, but she doesn't ask as many questions as Dan. List the people according to the number of questions each asks from most to fewest. I usually ask people to do that one. Sometimes I'll have them do number 11, which, if you look at that link, you can see it. It's the Jacob, John, George, Julie, and Mary sitting side by side on a bench. There's no one sitting to George's right. Mary is sitting between two people whose names begin with J. Julie is not sitting beside Mary, but is to the right of her. Jacob is not sitting beside someone whose name begins with J. Going from left to right, in what order are the people sitting? 12 is an interesting one. It's one of those binary one lie, one truth questions. But 13, actually 14 is one I usually have them do, although you can do either one of these. But it's basically the same problem. Mary has 2 more potatoes than Mary has fewer potatoes than Rob has. Rob has 10 potatoes. How many does Mary have? That's a question that gives people a lot of problems. So those are some available DRPs if you want to look at them. They were for classes I used to teach in high school or middle school. Gospel Pantheon? Yeah, you want a copy of it? You want a PDF? I'll read the PDF. You tired of waiting for me to get to it? I've in general thought I don't want to publish it necessarily under the book because then once people have read it, then there's no reason for them to watch the videos, right? Or something like that. I don't know. It's different with the cognitive function books. It's more like a reference book. But I will give you the I'll give you a PDF. I'll give you a link to the PDF. I'll put it under one of your comments in one of the videos that's not about Gospel of the Pantheon to make it a little bit more Heidi or something. So, okay. Where am I? Mad, fair enough. My bad NI tool likes archetypes, and if one doesn't fit all of a description, we get frustrated. I think what confused me at first is that your NI isn't very fleshed out. Sometimes it seems you try to just use enough NI so you can play with your third slot. I see. Well, I think he's using his NI to attempt to sort of like game the idea, but he's running foul of more complex TIFE vectors than he expected. That's my read on it, Mad Biscuit. I don't think your NE is 8 slot. I think it's 6 slot, and your FE is first slot, not third slot. If that were ENFJ, that would make sense. I don't know for sure, Curtis. I've not talked to you at great length, and I don't know. And I'm a little skittish around you because I don't really, it's like ENFJs can successfully fool people, including me, and they're pretty savvy at doing just that. So it's like their specialty. So it makes me a little querulous about dealing with you. Also, Eric, it was amazing. The last type video with the Aztec ESFP dude was an example of what a developed ESFP looks like. After the first 2 minutes, I knew it was the ESFP. Well, to be honest, like Amber and I went into that. Amber said beforehand, after she watched a couple of minutes, she thinks SFP. I hadn't even really formulated anything when I first watched it. Once she said SFP, obviously that was in my head. But I wanted to be careful with it because I felt like I needed to have very good FE in that instance because, he was so like eager to be pulled over and stuff. And I didn't want to be mean at all, and I knew he wasn't an INTJ like instantly, but I tried to be as deliberative as I could in the process, let's see here. I think it's the good FE, Eric. What's the good FE about? I don't know what that's all about. Oh. Now I know what you mean. I thought it was really cool, that last guy too. I like the way it worked out. It worked out well. I think it's a well received video. It generally seems to have a high thumbs up. Yeah, I got you, Evelyn. I can do those questions well if I hunker down and think, but I prefer not to deal with them. That's typical of tertiary TEI. You're an SFJ-ish INFJ. Like SFJs are going to have that. Well, I mean, it depends. Kimberly's going to have exactly that attitude. Jewel, who's an ISFJ, likes the challenge of doing them and does well on them and feels proud of herself and stuff. So it really depends on how naturally comfortable you feel with them. If you try them and you're like, oh, you know what, I'm actually pretty good at this one, especially if there were one that others were having trouble doing and you found you could do it yourself, I think you'd be very proud of yourself. That's just a guess. Curtis admits to playing FE games. We are here for the chit chat and the complimentary of your stack. Yeah, well, my stack is well suited for this endeavor and activity. It's all good, bro. No hard feelings, says D Brown. Loved your comment on the Aztec guy video as well. I can't believe I didn't realize that was Aztec. I feel kind of down afterwards. I should have realized that. But I don't know. I just don't know about this stuff, I guess. Could a strong A slot NI explain my consistent NI usage to justify the past, or could it be a SI that takes control when a mistake happens to make sure it doesn't happen again? That's it's a good question, and that's going to be tricky to determine. You have to ask yourself which serves the other. So, what's your implicit frame? For me, action serves novelty. Not the other way around. So novelty can serve action. Coming up with a new idea of something fun to do that we haven't tried before is a good way to motivate action, right? And to decide action even. But for me, it doesn't work that way. It's the other way around. Action serves my ideation. So the same thing would be in the case with the SI and the NI. You have to ask yourself, does the past serve the truth? Does the truth serve the past? Or the animal self might be a better way of putting it than the past. Yeah, well, he did, and we don't like that. ENTPs generally don't like that. Curtis ran afoul of me with that same shit. Curtis tricking people with his displays and, in my mind, trying to trick people. And it annoys us. I want to die because I'm a tyrant. Wow. First, why don't you stop being a tyrant? I never thought Curtis seemed like an ISFP. You're not sensitive and emotional, Curtis. You're some sort of like you're an ENF troll. That's what you are. Yep. That's what you are. Yeah, that guy is the greatest. Who's that guy? I don't know. I'm an angel. I would never trick you, Eric. Curtis, you are not an angel. Okay? You are not an angel. You are a sinner, a mortal, a sinner like us all. Can someone explain FE games? FE games are like messing with other people's perceptions, right? Whether or not they're games or subtextual communication or whatever, it's trying to be like staying one step ahead of the other person on an FE level. Well, here's an example of something that my INFJ friend Corey talked about to me one time that I remember still because it stuck out in my head. He's like, okay, well, there was this guy who thought he knew, who had me in a box, but in that box didn't include these particular aspects of myself that show really well. So certain like musical productions he'd made and stuff like that, or the guy had misjudged him off the bat. Corey had read that he had misjudged him, and instead of correcting him in any sense, he avoided offering any correction and let him sort of ride that misconception for quite a while. And Why is that not working? It's annoying. So anyway, Warped Remus, I don't want to hear that shit. It's annoying. For some reason my like block a person thing isn't working at the moment, so I don't know what to do about that. But regardless, Eric called them perception management. Yeah, perception management. And if you're doing it in ways that are kind of trolly, like for example, if I tried to make a big deal about scurvy awareness and how serious I was about stopping scurvy by making sure that everybody ate plenty of vitamin C and stuff, and just shit like that. Well, then I wouldn't really be serious. But if I played it really serious and went into an environment and got everybody to think that I was serious about this, and then walked away and they were kind of snickering about me being someone into scurvy and bought it, right? Like bought it wholeheartedly, not knowing that the joke's on them, that I don't really care about scurvy. Well, in that instance, that would be an FE game, and ENFJs love shit like that. Yes, it did stop while answer a question of mine. Oh, is that what it stopped answering? What question were you asking? Let's see. Oh, the A slot SINI thing. Right. Yeah, well, it would be, you just have to figure out which one serves the other one. Eric described him and his daughter being extremely emotional, but still using TI. Right. I'm still going to use TI even when I'm in a state of strong emotion, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, whether it's excitement or whatever. I'm going to have to feel, it's going to be a particularly dramatically interested occasion or event for me to switch over to FI. For example, like I remember when Delilah was very little and she leaned forward in her high chair and the whole thing was toppling over, and I somehow magically like leapt across the table and caught her before she fell down onto the ground. I'm not an extroverted sensor like that, right? I don't respond quickly in the moment. There's one time when she fell into this little river where she wasn't really in any danger, but she fell into this little river at Descanso Gardens. It's like a foot deep. It's this little stream thing they've got built in there. And she fell off the bridge. And her mom was in that little stream in half a second, her biological mom. Before I was like, oh, you fell in the river. Mom was already in there. So, but in that instance, when she was falling out of the high chair, I had the lightning fast SENI reflexes and fucking leapt across the table and caught her. So sometimes the interested calculus takes over and your attentional manner is driven to maximal optimization in a given area by the powerful interest that you have in the moment. Obviously, the interest in seeing your very small child not smash her head on the floor is pretty strong. So, Okay, so I have no idea what Curtis is. I can usually a feel for one type through the comments. I mean, I thought maybe ESTP. I don't know. It's hard to say. The guy you typed yesterday is the greatest. Ooh, that. That Aztec guy. Maybe Curtis is Sybil, multiple personalities. Possibly. Maybe he's actually a woman. Curtis, are you actually a woman? I want you to look down between your legs. Is there a penis there, or is there just two little flap things, meat curtains? What are the metaphysical aspects of FI? It's a good question and a difficult question for me to answer. I would say that there's necessarily a metaphysical aspect to it because FI grows over time. The longer you're with somebody or have shared experiences, especially positive ones, the weightier the attachment to that individual is. And so understanding the complex grammar of interweighted conflicts, like weighting conflicts between, meaning weighting, weighing, I guess you could say. Conflicts related to weighing various attachments against each other, because you can't always have your cake and eat it too. And an FI DOM, for example, understands that implicitly. An FI tool user is going to understand that less well, that they can't have their cake and eat it too. Because FITE means let's first know that I can have my cake and eat it too. Now, TE, find a way. So that's why I know FI has a metaphysical aspect, is because the quality of FI is weight, heaviness, good or bad, and it changes over time according to the relationship you have with the thing. I have a vague concept of it, but I have basically no metaphysical usage of FI at all. I mean, I get that. Obviously, I love my daughter a lot, and I love certain people more than others. But Kimberly's taught me something about the negative weight of it. She still mourns the death of Schmitty Rensel, this cat we had when we first were together for a while before it got killed by a coyote or a dog. And she makes me remember, like, oh yeah, remember you loved that cat a lot too. You were very sad when that cat died. And it's some sort of SI satisfying. It's an SI way into FI for me. So let's see here. What's the easiest way to discern ISTP versus INFJ? It shouldn't be difficult to discern, because you're talking about a TI DOM followed by SE, followed by NI, followed by FE in the last slot, versus an FE tool user. An FE tool user is going to be much more socially effective. ISTPs tend to draw the response that they're somewhat rude, they're somewhat callous, they're somewhat overly direct. They do a poor job of managing other people's emotions, even if they're doing a good job of managing the system. So that's ISTP's MO. ISTP is somebody who stays the course, who figures out the single best course and doesn't change horses in midstream. They're against ideation, basically. Let's not do what's novel. Let's do what works and we know about. It's a very TE valuing TI. So this should be easy to distinguish from an INFJ, because INFJs, on the other hand, are FE tool, and they're very socially effective, and they're much less about the best way to do things as they are about the best way to talk, right? That's the difference. INFJ is about the best way to talk, and ISTP is about the best way to do things. Are ISFJ or INFJ likely to be OCD, germophobic? What about social anxiety? I don't think so for either of those two types. I think that ISTJ might be either of those things. INTJ might be either of those things. I think they're much more likely to be that way. And I'll give you an example, which is my friend Cameron. He has a lot of weird dietary shit. He'll go through little phases where he's gluten-free, or he only eats protein, or he only eats gluten now. And just like he's got psychosomatic illnesses. So the thing about that is he's got all these dietary specifics that's kind of limit where we go to eat when we go eat with them and shit. And Kimberly would never express anything like that because of the FE consequences. And so she doesn't really like to eat chicken anymore. But if I forget that quality, she won't say anything, because that's not good FE. So that's why I don't think you're going to have that, at least about food and stuff. So I think the same basic logic applies. Wow, all of a sudden I put a bunch more comments and I'm behind now. I think the same logic applies to OCD germophobia, is that it doesn't play well. So it's unlikely to happen for an FE tool user. You're an INFJ with mild OCD. Well, I'm sure you don't express it in ways that others note or that impacts their perceptions of you. INFJs have crazy performance anxiety. That makes sense. ENTPs do too, a lot of times. How have I looked at Dave's superpowers idea that there are such things as masculine and feminine functions? Somebody asked me that the other day too. I haven't looked at it, but what I would say is it doesn't make sense that an intentional manner would be masculine or feminine. Or at least you'd have to draw a distinction that's meaningful. So just saying, well, ideating about girly stuff is feminine in me, and ideating about manly stuff is masculine in me, that's not going to do. You're going to have to give me some sort of real reason to believe the distinction ought to be made is meaningfully representative of something in reality rather than just a construction. ENFJs are cold manipulators. They tend to be very manipulative, but I don't think that's necessarily the case for all of them. That they're all manipulative. Some of them are more manipulative than others, but they all try to manage everybody else. Everybody's saying that. Everybody's agreeing with that. There's one thing we can all agree about in the typology community is that ENFJs are manipulative. I would say ENFJ can hurt people in ways other types can't. I think they do hurt people a lot more than other types do because they don't get the SI link, and they don't get that what they do has lasting impact because they don't experience that kind of lasting impact themselves in a way they understand. Sometimes I tell people they hate me, and they mean even when they are not, so that they overcompensate and do nice things for me. That's very manipulative of you, Curtis. But ENFJs always will help you out if you need it. Yes, and will expect something in return. I do all kinds of weird shit. I'll count the syllables contained within the sentence of the person I'm speaking with. That's weird. I used to, when I was a little kid, there was a stretch of time, maybe years, where I'd say something and then I'd repeat it back to myself. I'd say something and then I'd repeat it back to myself. Like that. But I'd whisper it or just say it inside my head. Eventually I stopped doing that. I don't know why I would do that. It was a strange thing to do. I just like the way it sounded. I guess I do know why. I still do it sometimes. When I'll say a word in the bathroom. I'll just be sitting in the toilet or something. I'll go, obsequious. Just because I don't know. It just sort of pops out of my mouth. And I'm thinking that's a word that has a weird sound. I think the fact that he is very fluid in his persona is indicative of high FE. It could be any, but the way he's doing it, I would agree with you. Look, there's another type that potentially could do that shit. That ENFJ shit. ENTP could attempt it. It might be the case that meta MBTI is an ENTP attempting it as well. They'd be doing it in a much more calculated way and less probably on the fly. But it's perceivable that an ENTP might go into various situations playing one of a set of possible characters that they've developed or something like that. I have a PP, sir. Oh, okay, you are male. He changes based on the external emotions and sentiments being surfaced by the interaction and adapts to that. Well, that's because he's an interface type. If you're right about that, and I haven't really paid that much attention, but that makes sense what you're saying, then, he's not inning, he's effing. SI bakes the cake. SI does. I mean, Kimberly is such a good cook. It's really unbelievable. It's something that you guys, you guys should try to avoid saying that. It's something that I wish people who I interacted with could taste it so that they would know that I'm not just blowing smoke up their asses. She's an amazing cook. Basic decaf depends on one's level of development. Basic decaf? Decaf? I don't know what that means. I think you got my number, bro. This shit is starting to make sense. Never considered ENFJ before. Thanks. Nobody, everything you blow smells like smoke, Curtis. Oh, so maybe my old boss was ISTP, not ISTJ. Was so damn stubborn. Yeah, quite possibly. ISTJs, it depends how they were stubborn. The ISTJ will be stubborn about this is how we do it. We do it this way. You need to do it this way. ISTPs are be like, no, it's deviating from the course. It's more noted for ISTJs. This is how we do this task. This is how we do that task. For ISTPs, it's like, this is the direction of our journey. I don't care if this is a good opportunity over here. We make seat cushions, okay, for this size chair, not that size chair. I don't care how wide open this market niche is. That's not what kind of shop we are. We don't make that kind of thing, okay? We are a 6-inch seat cushion maker, not a 7-inch. Don't accept a type until it makes sense to you. I'm glad I helped you in this journey. That smells like smoke too. What types are the least self-aware? Well, it depends what you mean by self-aware. There's a difference between reflective and self-aware. So all your intuitives are going to be pretty reflective. They're not necessarily going to be more self-aware in any meaningful sense. Self-aware kind of like, to me, means recognizing where your limits are, understanding your own biases contextually with other people's and that they are that, trying to reconcile situational realities with universal realities, stuff like that. That's my understanding of being more self-aware. So if you're talking about abstract reflection like that, well, then ISFP is going to be the least self-aware. But it's quite likely that ISFP would say that ENTP, INFJ are the least self-aware because they're the most distant from their authentic self. Or they might say ENFJ and ENTJ are the least self-aware because they're, but see, at least ENTJ's got 4th slot FI. I think they say INFJ and ENTP. INFJ has neither, ENFJ and INFJ have neither FI nor SI in the front of the stack. Now, the difference is INFJ's got SI 8th, which is your unconscious tool function. And so they're accustomed to using it. It gives them some link to the self. And they've also got FI countervalued instead of ignored, which is more, they have more conscious awareness of it. Of the back stack, I think 6 is the most conscious of the unconscious functions. So in that regard, they're a lot closer to the authentic self than ENFJ, who's the least close to it because they've got SI polar and they've got FI ignoring. So that they've got almost no conscious link to anything authentic about themselves. But that again, it depends which calculus you're using. If you're talking about the reflective, the abstract reflection kind of calculus, they're a lot more self-aware than ISFPs because they're so abstract and they understand so much in terms of people as patterns or characters. Let's see. I know an ISFJ germaphobe. Is that at the beginning of a rap, Amy? I know an ISFJ germaphobe. She also window shops for dopamine. I'm just window shopping for dopamine. I don't need to buy it because just window shopping for dopamine gives me the dopamine rush I'm looking for. That would be the problem with trying to sell dopamine, is that people would associate the purchasing of dopamine so much with dopamine rush that it would give them a dopamine rush, thereby precluding them from buying the dopamine. I wish I could act like I do around my husband and everyone I know. I think he is the only one that truly sees the real me. Well, Sheila, you just go ahead and have yourself a few shots of tequila right now, okay? Have a few shots of tequila, hang out on the live stream. We're going to have Curtis chat you up and manipulate you into showing your true self to us, okay? Curtis, I want you to use that ENFJ magic on Sheila. Sheila, you go get the tequila right now. So I guess you can be germaphobes if you're an ISFJ. Kim's is weird, like about certain things. Like sometimes she'll freak out because they don't clean the grill of the propane barbecue thing before I put meat on it. But I'll let the fire burn it for a while. So I mean, it's like not like there's any germs or anything on it. And I scrape it off a little bit. She's like, it's got dirty brown stuff. And I'm like, but Kim, it's obviously not. It's something that survives the heat of the blowtorch and shit. So it's not gonna hurt you, whatever it is. Anyway, that's just one example of ISFJ sort of mistaking the symbol of the thing for the thing itself. And that's gonna happen sometimes. Any insights into INTP and INFJ friendships? They should be good friends. They should get along well. They're both very intuitive. INTP is going to be a little bit more stubborn about being themselves than INFJ and stuff like that. I got to move a lot faster. I'm way late. Okay. But I would say they're both introverted, and there's going to be a lack of person who wants to take the stage there a bit. Depends what kind of shit you're doing together, too. Sometimes the shit you're doing may take the stage for both of you, so to speak. Do ENFJs express aspiration, interest in exercise or diet, third slot SE shit? Yeah, absolutely they do. Look good naked is important to them. They're feminine and masculine are just words they use to describe a function as pushover or cocky, I think. Well, that's not really meaningful because it's not the function, it's the individual person expressing it that way or being that way. Amy, my ISFJ sister put shopping items in her online cart because she said it makes her happy. Doesn't buy. Weird concept. Yeah, I can't believe that kind of stuff. Can dual functions sometimes work in a negative way, like any tool jumping into too many conclusions in a negative way? Sure, it's not always appropriate to use TI as a tool function either. And it's this a perfect example of a tool function working negatively is your wife telling you, I want you to just listen to me and hear my emotions and validate them. And you're going, well, that's not logical. That's, there you go. I like counting stairs I walk up. Well, you should walk upstairs a lot more often then. I've been doing this since I was a child. This example is only the tip of the iceberg. I do what Amy does, so it is satisfying. Sheila, I know an ISFJ that also does that online window shopping. That's funny. Do you question scientific evidence and claims to make sure it will stand the test of time? Scientific evidence and claims is too broad of a category of thing. It depends on the context and what kind of science it is and whether it's the appropriate kind of science for the appropriate question and whether it's actually answering a question and whether it's meaningful and which way it's meaningful. It depends on lots of things. Can I have pizza? Yes, you can. Do you think it's offensive to start referring to people by their MBTI type instead of their name? So if I were to call you, yo, INFP, I don't know. It's like the problem with it is, even if you totally identify as a given type, like if you were to say, hey, ENTP, I'd probably turn around, but I would have no way of knowing if you mean me or some other ENTP. So that would be the problem with that. What does tool FI do? Is it listening? Is it empathizing? Is it upholding values? It's knowing how important something is to you. You might say that's upholding values, but it's upholding value. You value something. What you value may be a value. I value kindness or something, but it's not, that doesn't mean that FI is the source of values, because values like fairness are definitely derived from TI. What it means is you know what's more and less important to you. You have two choices. Do you want to go to Disneyland or do you want to go to Bobby's birthday party? You'll think about it hard if you're an FI user, and you'll know exactly the answer to that and why, and some other shit about FI that I don't understand really. That's what it means to use FI, is to have a clear understanding of your own personal interest and it stretches across time. So you understand how much weight something has based on the amount of time you've already spent with it and what that counts for, and all these other calculi that, again, I don't really understand. What function combination is it when a group project have a certain plan and others not following it? Because I can't really explain it, and I want to tell them that they should. Well, that's just you might be an INTP who's frustrated by their slowness. You might be an ENTP who doesn't really understand the idea fully himself yet and is trying to explain it and just hoping they'll sort of fill in the blanks. You don't know how to explain it without hurting their feelings. I mean, what you're trying to explain is you need to listen to me because I'm doing this way better than you guys are, and I have a better idea, and this thing is actually good, and your shit is all garbage. Well, that's just you being a pedant. It's an INTP thing, probably. You're probably right, though. I mean, I feel the same way a lot of times. When I was in school doing group projects, like these people are stupid. It's sort of unavoidable. It depends on the kind of task, right? I felt stupid in other kind of things where it's like, this is hard. I don't like this. I feel stupid. You know, like when I had drafting, the teacher gave me Mercy C's. I was trying my best. I was just unbelievably terrible at it. I had, back in the day, you know, this is before computers really. And when I was in middle school, we had drafting was one of the shop classes. You could take wood shop, metal shop, drafting, and something else. I don't remember. And that's drafting. And I was just absolutely, I couldn't make straight lines. I didn't get, it was a nightmare. It was all TE. So anyway.
Who's a nightmare?
Drafting. I find a lot of ENTPs tend to be hypochondriac. I was when I was younger. I got over it. Do you think it's SI inferior? Probably. ENTPs, I notice, say a lot of stuff and then use the FE against people who try to hold them down ideationally. So you're saying that we FE bust chops on people who try to limit ideational communication, but that means we say a lot of stuff. I'm not sure where you're going out there. No, Curtis, I mean, you swim, adjust, you are not generative within an interaction. Oh, yeah. Okay. That I agree with you there. Sheila Tequila. Time for tequila, Sheila. If you don't want to drink tequila, you can drink bourbon. Okay? Either way. We're trying to get Sheila to open up, to reveal her true self. I feel like I could be anyone. Yeah, Curtis, that's very ENFJ if that's the case. You know, unless they're self-aware types, will likely have trouble figuring out their type without the aid of others. True. True, I think. Do you think having, I mean, that's one definition of it. Do you think having inferior SE leaves one susceptible to addiction? No, I don't think INFJs are particularly susceptible to addiction. I think inferior SI would be more correlative with it. I think action types are most susceptible to addiction. Low FI for sure, probably low SI as well, like Eric said. So ENFJ makes sense, Curtis. What function or combo of would make someone find their identity more in the universe? Does that make sense? Well, to have a clear sense of who they are authentically would be FI-SI. So INFP would be right at the top there, or potentially ISTJ.
You thought it was going to be a slow day.
I don't think people should use MBTI to refer to anybody or even use the system in typing. MBTI is a system based on the functions. It doesn't explain anything in depth, so Socionics should be. I mean, people just use MBTI 4-letter codes and they can be equivalently translated into Socionics. I don't think Socionics better understands the mechanics of things because I think Socionics gets certain things wrong about it that undermine its success in explaining things. So, I mean, I don't think it's separate numbering system and separate, and the blocks make any sense. They're arbitrary. They're not justified by anything. So in that regard, I think you start getting led astray by Socionics. You give it too much credence in too many ways. Some certain things work and certain things don't. Eric, who does Mary have more pencils than in question 13? It says exactly what it means, okay? You got to look at the second half of the sentence first if you want to get that one. You want a hint there of some sort. The second half of the first sentence says, Mary has fewer potatoes than Rob has. or pencils, whatever it is. So focus on that part first and then go from there. Let's see. Do you think it's possible for INFPs to be chronically diplomatic in communications, even when more directness is required? Yeah, I do, absolutely, because they're FE ignoring. So they're going to be good at FE, but not because they're using it willfully or consciously. And when it requires an adjustment in the way that deviates from their authentic selves, then they're not going to make that adjustment. They're not going to prioritize it. Host Eric is ILE, not ENTP, but I get what it refers to, which is why I see no real problem with it, to be honest. Right. I'm an intuitive, logical extrovert. I'm also an ENTP. But regardless, what I really am is NETI. So we could just say that, right? Maybe an Enneagram 9 INFP, unlikely 4 with 5 INFP. I know a 486 INFP. She was very intense. I took small engine class and loved it. Wanted to be a car mechanic, but my dad talked me out of it. Said girls shouldn't be greasy and dirty all the time. Well, yeah, that's surprising that you loved it. I guess the bottom line is car engines are a pretty small logic for TE to take on. And so, obviously if it's taught well enough and you get the concept, then it's not going to be a problem for you. Thanks, Brenda. Still confused about my types to Cynthia O. You're a type O, which is a rare type. That means you only can receive transfusions of personality type B minus. Is it typical for INTPs to question their own type because they keep analyzing memories that are not fitting in with INTP? It's typical for them to question their own type because they keep analyzing everything that doesn't fit. They're looking for inconsistencies of all sorts. And so they're going to find every possible inconsistency. And they're not going to quickly come to the conclusion that the ratio of consistency to inconsistency is satisfactory to justify a firm conclusion. Do you think religions have function biases? I think Christianity is more FITI. I think Islam and Confucianism or something are more FE. And, more TE, I guess you could say. Will the distribution of types in the general population change over time? Yes, by 12%. Is it typical for INTP to question everything? Yes, it is typical for them to question everything and to potentially slip into nihilism as a consequence, which is to say, to conclude that nothing really means anything because everything can be questioned. INTPs are well served to resist this urge and to fight against it because it will only lead them astray. That makes me sad. I hope you have cars to work on in your farm. I hope you don't, Sheila, because that doesn't sound fun. What accounts for the discrepancy between INFP's understanding of who they are and the difficulty they have making life decisions? Because they're so focused on who they are, first and foremost, what they authentically want, first and foremost, what's a good decision in accordance with what they authentically want, and their projections of how they're going to feel about something over time and how their feelings are going to change over time. That they have trouble pulling the trigger. For example, I dated an INFP who at the very beginning of the relationship predicted successfully and correctly that I was not going to be patient enough to wait for her to be ready to really be with me. And she was right. I didn't know that was going to play out that way. She predicted it right away at the beginning of the relationship. She knew my tolerance for allowing feelings space and time to develop was very low. She could just tell somehow. I guess because she's my supervisor, Anyway, that's something that having FI awareness would be exemplified by. And it's going to interfere with them doing shit because if she knew that ahead of time, she did it anyway, right? But a lot of times that's enough to dissuade an INFP from doing it. This guy seems like a good choice, but given the circumstances, I can anticipate he's not going to be patient enough to allow feelings to develop because it's like, then that'll dissuade them from doing anything a lot of times. And that's the meow of the meow. What if you don't know how you feel? Think Eric, etc. No, Eric. Well, then you need to feel harder or think harder. You're not feeling hard enough, Adrian Bartlett.
Focus on your tenders.
Focus your tenderness on your dampness. Look for the tenders within the dew of your moisture, okay? Deep within there, you're going to find a particularly damp spot that's especially tender. There is your real self. Massage it gently like a prostate. Let's see. I think that like philosophers expressing their function biases, Nietzsche, for example, people who create certain religions like Buddha are also expressing function biases. Sure. And in fact, people who attempt to meta up and deconstruct the whole thing, like me, are also expressing a function bias. I'm saying I'm going to ignore NI as a possible ultimate deciding metric here. I'm going to try to say, look, we all have our own understandings of truth. That doesn't mean they're all equally legitimate, but it's contextual, and we need to be able to be flexible ideationally in the moment in order to realize the best potentiality and stuff. That might, I think that's probably the best argument to be made for that, but it's still a reflection of my function bias, right? So let's see. Can ENFJ be an Enneagram 9? I don't know. So then can some people feel more themselves when they don't have an identity, but would rather blend and not have one? Well, you don't necessarily want to blend and not have one. People construct identities. My identity is somewhat constructed. I don't have a super clear link to FI. So I've developed a character over the course of years that has been shaped as though by waves crashing against rocks. When I do things that don't FE validate, I'll get big waves crash against the rocks, and they'll prune away those behaviors that cause FE backlash. When I do things that don't adequately consider other people's manners of attention themselves, that's an example of running into some FE harms potentially. I have to always be fair. I got to always be, I can't be a hypocrite. There's lots of little sort of rules that go with being an ENTP that are really FE heuristics that that constrain the ENTP and make them be who they end up being, whatever that might be. It's going to be somewhat particularist in its expression. So far, I've only struggled with Mary's pencils and potatoes because deconstructing a sentence is difficult without punctuation. Otherwise, the stuff is simple but energizing. Well, then you're not a polar TI then. So if you're not a polar TI, then that leaves you ENTP and ESTP to choose between. If you're sure it's EXXP. Stylish hat, says Amy. Thank you. I've got it styled in the fashion of a North African merchant at the moment. So how could one be in an Enneagram 4 wing 5 yet type is 521 on their tri-type? Is this maybe test related? Yeah, well, you wouldn't be a 4 wing 5, then you'd be a 5 wing 4 really, or the 5 in the tri-type would be wrong and you have a 4. The thing is, it's like, it could be, I mean, if you type 521, the thing is the wings. I don't really like wings in general, but in theory, you could be 5 wing 4, 2 wing whatever, 1 wing whatever. But I don't like that idea. But regardless, I just go on the tri-type. I don't really go with the wing thing. So I consider myself 7, 8, 4, not 7 wing 8, 8 wing 7. You know. Eric, any thoughts on numerology simulation theory? Keep token, brother. The simulation theory, I think, is as viable an explanation as any I've ever heard. And I think it makes the most sense of anything, really, because there's ample indications that are consistent with simulation theory beyond just the logic of it. The logic of it being, if we extrapolate out from our existing ability to simulate reality, then we imagine a future ability to simulate reality that approximates or approaches the experience of actual reality. That virtual reality will become at some point indistinguishable from actual reality. And then at that point, we have to imagine that we will simulate entire worlds in which individuals, either as expressions of a computer algorithm or as beings played by other individuals from another universe as part of a game or something, that that such simulations will exist. And if such simulations are possible, then it's highly likely that we're not the quote unquote base reality, that we are in fact a simulation ourselves and not the base reality. Now, one of the things that most convinces me that this is a really viable theory is evolution. Evolution makes sense conceptually and is intuitively a smart explanation for things. The fossil record would seem to support it, and the branching aspect of it anyway. It would suggest there's some sort of increasing complexity branching out from decreasing complexity. But when we actually look at the fossil record and the time periods and stuff, we've got extinction events happening every 40 million years until finally they get it right, whoever's playing this game, right? And then we see all of a sudden super fast evolution over the course of 1 million years, in which you get most of the species after the last extinction event, all happening within like 1 million years, beyond any explanation evolution could possibly provide. Except they call it punctuated equilibrium with no explanation as to what causes this massive sudden burst of growth of evolution, and then species to thereafter remain in genomic stasis, which is what most species are in most of the time, according to evolution itself. So it doesn't make any sense, except that they kept trying to get it right, but they kept ending up with a bunch of corals first. Then they'd end up with like dinosaurs, so no mammals could take place. And they're still not going to get intelligent life. And then finally, at the last extinction event, somebody who's playing this got it right. So they stopped causing extinctions. That's why the last one was 66 million years ago, even though reliably they happened every 40 million years prior to that. It all fits that story. Now, that's just a story. That's a story I'm telling. It's not proof of anything, but it is, I think, a more convincing explanation than anything the scientists have been able to come up with to explain how the genome goes from decreased to increased complexity via species change when there's so many contraindicative reasons to think to the contrary. Now, many people out there probably are big aficionados of evolution and don't like to hear it when I start talking about how evolution doesn't make sense. But, if you look into it, if you actually look into it, I'm not saying, well, you must be creationist or something. I'm not saying I don't like evolution because I love God so much or whatever. I don't have an alternate path. I don't really have an explanation except the sim theory. And I'm just telling you, if you really look into evolution and you think about it a lot, it doesn't make any sense and it doesn't work. So you can take that if you want or not. Trust me that I'm telling you, it's not because I'm religious or something like that. So I will move forward in the chat here in a second. Let me smoke this bowl, if you'll excuse me the interruption for a moment. Let me also take this moment to say, do a little advertising. I do type people for money. Somebody I need to schedule who paid me yesterday. I gotta go to the email and schedule them, and then, but it's $100 for a 75-minute session one-on-one by one of the appear.in rooms, and I think most people feel like it's money well spent, and they walk away confident about their type. Occasionally, I will be confused a little bit, but use the time as you see fit as well. I'm looking to make the client happy. If they want to talk about additional other things or talk about cognitive functions, but not necessarily about what type you are or something, or whatever you want to do with the time is fine. Anyway, that's enough of the advertisement. So let's move on to the chat. If you did an entire chat while only referencing Tinder dampness, I would laugh through the entire thing. Tinder talk never gets old to me. Well, yeah, it is the moistest of all talk. Described that deliberation damn detailed. Thank you. It's funny how now, because I have no desire to work on cars as an adult, maybe my dad knew better than I in high school, possibly. A hotel-like hat thing. This is actually just a regular woolly cap, but it's I got it pushed up like that. Cynthia, INFPs know who they are, but have trouble making decisions because they're any and INFP always want to keep their options open. What's sixth slot any like in your experience? It's like that story you wrote. Is there a difference between INTP-FE and ISTP-FE? Yes, ISTP-FE is less considered, less careful, more tit for tat. So INTPs are less rigorous about fairness. ISTPs will justify mean things if they think they're fair, whereas INTPs won't generally. So I would say ISTPs are more brutish in their FE, more stick, less carrot. And let's see. You said eighth function helps to serve the dominant function in an unconscious way. How does eighth slot FI affect dominant TI? Well, it helps the TI user, the dominant TI user, apply their disinterested calculus in an interested frame. So, it's fine to be disinterested, but if you need to know what to be disinterested about. And you can be disinterested about a matter that's very much of interest to you, and still be disinterested about it and making the calculus, because that's the smartest thing to do in terms of preserving the well-being of the thing that is of interest to you, by which I mean of value to you, not just interesting or curiosity to you. Thanks, Bernadine. I'm pretty proud of it. I'm pretty proud of your penis. Is it common for INFJ to get so much satisfaction out of their detailed daydreams of how they think their future will be that it prevents them from action? It seems plausible. I've never heard it before, but certainly seems plausible. I was still pondering the question you asked about truth being discovered or created last night. I think the answer to that is it's a little bit of both, but it's mostly discovered. So I think that there are elements of a song, for example. Well, a song is discovered mostly, but a track has created elements to it that can help make the discovered thing be a little bit more. It's like putting bows and ribbons on it a bit. I think that's when any serves NI properly. It makes sense about identity, host Eric. Thanks. So then if I can, what do you personally think about your identity then? Do you think you're a piece of whole or a whole in and of itself? I think of myself as a whole, and it's because of SI. I think of myself as an animal. It's like what prevents me from ever getting particularly cocky is knowing that I'm an animal and that I'm very much subject to mood swings, sleeping, food, all that other kind of shit that makes a big difference. There's a song I have called It's a Matter of Mood More Than a Matter of Will. And recognizing that much of who I am and what I do has to do with my body's state, and not any decision-making really on my part. It's humbling, it's a reality check for me. And I think it helps. So I know myself through my animal realities. I know that my elbow hurts. My elbow hurts a little bit. I call it guitar elbow. I think my right elbow is from strumming so much. No, it's not masturbating. Okay, don't even think that. You people have a dirty mind. Core wing is way more informative than tri-type. Okay, well, I'm not an Enneagram expert, so instinctual variants I think are interesting. I do agree that instinctual variants are very informative. I consider myself now, I would say I'm sexual social, maybe sexual self-preserving, but definitely I feel most correct in a pair bonding relationship, a two-person team. I feel just like life is as it ought to be when I'm with my woman, whoever my woman be at the time, and things are going fine. And if things aren't going fine there, then I've got little problems there. But and I feel much better that way than I do single. And I think if I face problems and I have to deal with them without my partner, I will first go to self-preserving, which is sort of like a TE approach. And then after that, lastly, I'll go to social. But it depends. Probably though self-preserving, I think. So that's interesting. The instinctual variance. Amos says, I agree with Ali. At least for me, it's true as a tree and it's filled with bee. That was your most FE successful negation of evolution. Thanks, Evelyn. Evelyn chimes in with a little bit of brilliance as usual. Do you have some of your store? No, I don't, but we're going to get an Etsy store instead. The store I had cost too much money to maintain. Speaking of dinosaurs, when I was a kid, when I asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, I was like, I want to be a T-Rex or Luke Skywalker. Why not be both? T Skywalker or Luke's Rex T. I wanted to be Indiana Jones, says Brenda Dean, but I kept that a secret. I'll tell you a sad story. When I was a kid, what I really wanted one time for birthday or Christmas or something was an Easy Bake Oven. I really wanted it. I was like, those things look so cool. You can cook cupcakes in those things. You can cook whatever in those things. I mean, it's like I could put bugs in there. I could put dirt in there. I could put all kinds of shit in there. And then I got it. I convinced my parents to get it for me. And then it was in the box still. It was in my room. It was in a box. And a friend of mine came over and he's like, what's up with this Easy Bake Oven? I'm like, oh, that's something we're giving to my cousin for a birthday. I don't know. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. And then after he left, I told my parents, take that back, return that. I don't want that thing. You gotta get rid of it. That's third slot FE. So yeah, Jedi T-Rex. Luke T-Rex Walker is a good name for a gay bar. It's a little weird you referenced your demon function and your name's Damien. Who are you? Is it Beelzebub? Is he here in our chat causing evil? Underground Eastern European tech metal band. Luke T-Rex Walker. T. Luke Rex Walker. I think that's a good name. T. Luke Rex Walker. Thanks to that, Eric. It was quite fun. Sometimes I'll send you my answers. For now, my 10-year-old brother is ready to hang out. I hope you all enjoyed your day. You two plan to catch up. Even your 10-year-old brother, I want you to go out, you play catch. You be all American, all right? Whatever country you're from. Get a baseball, you get 2 mitts, you go out there, you play catch, and you have some hot dogs and some ice cream. Then I want you to go to the park and play tetherball, then come home and high five. Okay? I'm only demonic when I'm in the SE grip. Can you relate, D. Brown? You know, when I'm in the SE grip, I can't help it. I sacrifice children at the altar in the backyard. Their virgin blood drips all over me. I just rejoice in it. Damien, that's not okay even when you are in the SE grip. Are you sure? Even if I'm deeply in the grip? Yes, I'm sure. That's not okay. God. That was the best asterisk story. Thank you, Justine. I don't know if that is sarcastic or or what. I don't know what the asterisks are meant to mean. I'm not sure. Lamau, I'm not Aleister Crowley. He's a scary INFJ. INFJs can be scary, but you know what else they can be? Sassy and a little sexy too. Oh yeah. I can be sassy, and I see a little SX too. I see all three sometimes. Is that common? Well, given you're an FE interface type, it would be common because you're saying, it would seem to me FE second would correlate with social first, sexual second, and self-preserving last. That's just my guess. Curtis, you want to talk to Rick? All right. Well, for Valentine's Day this year, I went down to the beach early in the morning because it was like post-storm, so they were like pretty big waves. I got my board out and I was about to go out in the way. I saw these two Bettys, and they were lying there. And I'm like, "Hey, girls." And anyway, I just ended up poking them. They're on the beach. There wasn't really anybody around except for a couple of families nearby, but whatever. After that, I just went surfing real quick to wash my dick off, basically. And then I went back home, and there's this chick I've been seeing lately. And I called her up. I'm like, "What's going on, Judy?" And Judy's like, "Rick, it's not cool that you call me on Valentine's Day. My husband and I are spending the day together." I'm like, "Come on, baby. You know, you can still meet me quickly behind the Savons in the Volkswagen." And she's like, "Okay, well, real quick though." So then I went and I did that, and then I had Mongolian barbecue for dinner. Have you ever had that? You pick it all ahead of time, and then they cook it right there on that big flat thing. It's pretty great. It's pretty great. Yeah. Afterwards, I went out for a couple brewskis, watched the game. Went home with the bartender's chick. I forget what her name was. Drew, maybe? I don't know. Fru or something. Pew. I don't know, something like that. She was pretty hot. Anyway, thanks for asking. Okay, well, that was Rick Benson. He's kind of an asshole, but you heard what he did on his Valentine's Day. Do people also validate other things than people by their fifth function? He said INTJs validate what good music is by any, but I don't understand how that would generalize. Like, for example, I think they validate anything that is external to them with their fifth function. That resonates on that fifth function. So I couldn't really very well validate. I couldn't very well validate, say, a PR campaign on truth. I guess you still could, but let's say something else. I couldn't very well validate an example of a debate round on truth, for example. If I'm judging a debate round, I can't legitimize the winner based on saying, well, what they were saying is more true. I have to validate it on TI. Well, what they are saying undermined the consistency of the other team with what they're saying. Or they beat this thing and I can't vote for them because they needed this thing to establish that thing, and that thing's no longer standing, and they needed that thing to establish this thing. I have to vote like that. I can't vote on truth. So in general, I might validate things that personally on truth. It doesn't mean I can't validate by a different metric when it's not a personal matter. So can you please talk more about seeing yourself as an animal? It's interesting because I don't think this way. Do you mean you're the culmination of evolutionary drivers or something like that? No, I mean I'm a physical animal. Like, I'm constrained by my physical body, by my need for sleep, my need for food, my need for going to the bathroom, my thirst, and just being a fragile human being. As I get older, especially, I start to recognize the fragility in my body. For example, my guitar elbow, which is intermittently bothersome, but which generalizes away from just playing guitar. So if I'm picking up a heavy potted plant, then my elbow will hurt. That's annoying. But it just makes me realize that caring for myself and finding satisfaction in caring for myself as well. So I find a lot of satisfaction last night in not staying up. After the live stream crash, I went inside. Kimberly fed me a big dinner of spaghetti, and I went to bed at like 7 p.m. And it was very good for me to do that. And it's important for me to do that when I have the gumption to do it, Because a lot of times I'm feeling, if I'm feeling excited about something, I don't want to go to bed. I don't want to stop playing. Or ENTPs are like little kids in that regard. So taking care of myself means taking care of my animal self. Eric, do you actually do typing sessions? People have said, do you charge? Yes, Alex Jackson, I do typing one-on-one sessions, 75 minutes, $100. You can email me at ssuartscire@gmail.com. That's Eric Strauss backwards, Suarts Sire, SSUARTSCIRE at gmail.com. I'll give you Kimberly's PayPal address. PayPal me $100. I set up a time with you then. You can find it within a day or two. And then we have the typing session, lasts about 75 minutes and sometimes longer. And hopefully you leave very satisfied with the experience. I think most people do. So that's for anybody watching this as well as for the person who asked the question there. Is there an estimated finish time for this? Did I miss that? Or do I... Ooh, I jumped ahead again. Or do I just quietly step out the back door when I is ready to go? Yeah, you just quietly step out the door whenever you're ready to go. Or, I mean, people come and go as they please. That's the great thing about this kind of format is there's no expectations, no obligations, no stems, no seeds, no stress. Everybody come and stay as long as they want, do what they want, chat as they want, and I just go through the chat thing, and then for me, actually, I'll probably end it in about 15 minutes because I got a 1:30 class today. I'd like to do something. I'll feel like I didn't tend to my animal self if I just do this the entire time before I leave for work. And the reason is because there's a little bit of cleaning up I could do. I could drink some more juice in a little while. I'm going to probably take a bath, change clothes before work. And I just would feel like I was just too twacked out on one thing if I didn't do anything else besides this before I left for work. So I'd probably be ending in about 15 minutes, about 2 hours. What about Raul Diego's Valentine? He spent it with his censora, I believe. He spent most of the day yelling at her to respect his genius. I don't understand, in a way you are critiquing it and comparing, or for your personal experience about Florian. What's the 6-slot innie like in your experience? It's like your story that you wrote. If you were to type in INFJ SPSONW1 on Google, you'd probably find a lot of cool things. Benson, way more interesting. But I'm Beta Quadra, so I like that ho shit. Yeah, well, that's Beta Quadra for you. I don't understand it fully either. That's why I asked this question. But so far as your question goes, I would say that the statement that some music is good is a subjective statement. It is a subjective statement, but I reject aesthetic relativism, which is to say, I believe that there are absolute aesthetic truths, that they are discovered primarily, and that they are those that are more true or more universally resonant. But there's a created aspect to it that is not really understood because it's obtained through NI, which is an instantaneous knowing function rather than a time requiring and effort requiring or attention requiring action function like NE. So when you hear the right melody to go over a certain chord progression after listening to it a few times, and it goes, oh, it's supposed to go like this. That's clearly discovering something and having it sit. And it's not me trying infinite options until I just pick one that sort of logically seems better or some other stupid way. You just got to kind of wait for the truth to hit you. Now, that's a reality that makes me convinced that there are aesthetic absolutes. However, they're not aesthetic. The fact that they're aesthetic absolutes doesn't mean they're defensible as arguments, nor are they reducible. So I can't come up with a formula to create things that are true because they have to be intuited in the fashion indicated. They're channeled directly from God or wherever. They're not manufactured. That's my subjective opinion about it, I guess you would say. But it's also, I think, what's most consistent with reality if you are to evaluate all instances and step away from the absolute defensibility of the statement as an argument. I think you'd agree it's descriptively probably more accurate than the alternative. Sheila W. Eric, I'm always so impressed how you quickly respond on your feet when asked a new concept. It takes me a couple of days to mull things over to see what I really think, and I still never say it like it sounds in my head. Well, that's because you're NI and you want to know the truth before you start talking. I'm habituated to talking my way into the truth. If I start off on the wrong path, I go start, talk. Now, this thing I was just talking about here was clearly the wrong path, but I put that out there to demonstrate and to compare and contrast against what I'm about to say now, which is the right path, which I have suddenly secretly realized on the fly was the right path. Maybe not so secretly. Probably INFJs see through that shit, right? They're like, I know what you're doing there. You're not fooling anybody, Eric. I do that shit all the time. Like, I'll realize I'm on the wrong path. Most of the time I can circle out of it without having to go, okay, oh wait, no, I'm sorry, that was my bad. I'm thinking it wrong. Like yesterday, though, I wasn't able to circle out of a debate practice. I was talking about what I thought was an affirmative K, but it was actually a neg K because the resolution says we should do something, which kind of flips all the alpha and neg around. Anyway, I was doing the wrong side for a bit, and I just had to go, oh, no, I understand why we're so confused here. It's because I'm doing the wrong side. My bad. Sometimes I have to just collapse like that because at the NE, at that point, you realize you fucked up. The NE is not going to save you. You just got to deal with it. So, okay, let me continue on down. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it, Sheila. So, yeah, now I'm behind again. So you can critique or compare it, be a form of critiquing, though. Like, I think I'm saying I think this music is really good and this is good. Then you go to FI. I mean, I think it's an NI way of validating versus just an FI way. FI is one component of NI, though. Something can be very emotionally revelatory, like reveal of a true emotion of the person, or emotionally evocative, like evoking a true emotion from you. What's the time zone difference? It's 11:30 a.m. right now in Los Angeles, California. It is clear he's thought about these questions before, but still, it would take me a while to think of answers I'm satisfied with. Cynthia, that's a good point. I have thought about these questions before. I've answered many of these questions before, and the topics in general are things I've thought about for many years, the philosophy topics and stuff like that. I started thinking a lot better when I started thinking more publicly. So, this question, do you have any books or resource suggestions for people who want to learn about debate? I do have a couple of documents I can share about debate. One of them is called Argumentational Mechanics for Adults. It's pretty jargony because it's really an outline for me to teach a class. It's not really intended for learners to engage with directly, but you could nevertheless, if you're smart and intuitive and willing to do a little bit of Googling here and there, perhaps, I think it would be a very effective way to learn about debate, is trying to figure out that document kind of. So I'll post a link to it. I posted it before. It's called Argumentational Mechanics for Strategic Debate. Yeah, Argumentational Mechanics for Strategic Debate. And the document to teach a class ideally was going to be taught for adults, but it never came together. E&P shit. You know how that shit goes. I'll get it up in a second, though. What types can't handle loud music, strobe lights? I don't like it. I mean, I think any SE sensitive people, which is to say, if you've got any on the front of the stack, then you're going to not necessarily like a lot of that kind of shit. TWFE live stream chat is greater than CSJ Discord. Well, I don't know anything about Discord. I know that Discord is very popular with the young people these days, but I'm barely locked into YouTube, so I don't know what to do about that. What type function is more likely to think that dreams are trying to tell them something that is coming from outside the self? I think it's going to be high NE, probably INFJ, ENFJ, maybe ENFP. See, that's a contradictory answer. But it's like, I guess ENFP, INFP, but also INFJ, ENFJ, because the INFP is because of the lack of TI. The INFJ is because of the excess of NI, or the ENFJ. Every time I get romantically involved with the person, I immediately and frequently think about how it will probably end. Could this be an example of third slot NI? It could be an example of attachment problems. If you've got attachment disorders because you were subject to some sort of abuse as a child, then you are going to have a hard time believing in the longevity or permanence of any relationship. And you'll always be doomsaying because you want to get out ahead of it. You think it's going to hurt less if you anticipate it, or you even sabotage shit. So that's more likely to be a particularist experience of whether or not you experienced, whether you were loved right when you were a kid or not. I think INFPs can, but not for long. EJRNT used to say that. They can do what? Explore their moisture? What are dreams? What are they? Well, I've heard one thing that resonated with my experience and has resonated with talking to people so far. And it's the only thing I would say that I have in particular opinion about regarding dreams. It seems to be that people dream a lot in their inferior function, their fourth function. So a lot of my dreams are rooted in past locations, like my grandmother's house. I spent a lot of time as a kid. And a lot of Kimberly's dreams are kind of wild and all over the place, more NE style. So I think that something to consider if it resonates with you or not. If you guys want to chime in on that and let me know right here in the chat, we can see how many people resonate with that or not. Think about what your fourth function is and see if you find a lot of that in your dreams, and try to be as unbiased in the calculus as possible. And it's either going to be yes or no. Is it FU when I want to wear headphones to listen to music rather than playing it for everyone to hear, like public places? Well, sure. If you're worried about bugging other people, that's an FU awareness that's going to bug them, because it doesn't work as a general rule. Like if everybody played their music on a ghetto blaster, then it would be too much blasting in the ghetto. What types see the outside as part of the inside? Is it a perceive reject difference or I versus E? The outside is part of the inside. I think that would be FE above TI or TE or FI. So you'd see, in that case, you'd see the display of the person as being revelatory of their actual self and be upset when it's not. Goodbye, says Florian Bischoff. Goodbye, Florian Bischoff. Goodbye. Courtney Stiggle. Are ESTJ the most stuck in their ways, and is there any hope that they will become more considerate and open-minded? As an EHP female, I've never met someone I've hated and enjoyed so much. Well, ESTJs are rather stuck, but not entirely. My dad at 80-something still retains some flexibility in his thinking, and he'll get there by his countervalued, I guess it's not countervalued, it's ignored TI. He is responsive to TI. He does validate the external world via TI. And if I make a convincing case, he will adjust somewhat. Now, at 82, he's adjusting less than he would have 10 years ago. But he's always been relatively flexible, and he has gotten more considerate as he's gotten older, and he's gotten less judgy in the conventional sense of the word of judging other people or judging things. Although he was always in some way less judgy than my mom, who was an ISFJ. So, I mean, I have good experiences with the ESTJs because my dad's a particularly smart one and great dad, So I don't necessarily vibe with the anti-ESTJ sentiment that a lot of people have, because I think they're funny. My dad was funny in his ESTJ-ness. He was always saying things like, now, son, did you check this thing before beginning this? Because, you need to do he's always talking about pre-work. Before you start, son, you need to set up this and this and this. And I hated pre-work. That's good at Walter. That's what I've been trying to articulate, but not doing great at. What type sees themselves as, or things as a chain or conjunction? Yeah, I mean, I think that's I don't know, to the extent that you see yourself as a character versus as you see yourself as a distinct, unique individual. INFPs are likely to say, I'm a distinct, unique individual. I can't be summed up by any kind of character. And ENFJs are likely to say, everybody can be summed up by a character. Spacey, the time to mull things over. Yeah, INFPs need time too, because you countervalue NI and your SE polar, so decisiveness is in your strong suit. Yeah, I agree with that. I would think that could be an NI type, since they think truth is outside of themselves. Maybe especially NI tools, since they have SI polar and don't understand particular experience. Yeah, I agree. Actually, Florian should mix in NI with the FE there. Thank you. I'd love to see the document. I forgot about it. Thank you for reminding me. I'm looking for it right now. Argumentational mechanics for strategic debate is right here. And I will push the share button here. And it shows up. There it is. And then it's going to say, it's going to give me the option to copy the link, which I will take full advantage of when it presents that option to me. Copy link, it suggests. Okay, I will, I say. Link copy to clipboard, it tells me. All of these are moments of excitement in the process of getting this. Then I'm going to push paste right here and then enter. You'll see the link. Okay. Don't dreams have something to do with the subconscious? What would an FE dream look like? It just seems like a funny answer. I don't really know much about dreams. I don't really have an opinion about them much. I don't dream much because I smoke so much weed. I think weed is a dream suppressor. I dream about SE things a lot, of action situations, violent things. That would be consistent if you were an NI Dom, with my theory. Sheila says my fourth function is SEH and to have a lot of sex dreams. That's consistent with you being an NI Dom. Spaceys is not consistent with him being an INFP. All of my dreams take place in the area I grew up in as a child. But I will say this, though, Spacey. Somebody suggested to me you're an ENFJ who was putting on an INFP show. That's always plausible. ENFJs can fool people with their shows. I don't think so, though. Dreams for me are basically always a full-blown movie, a storyline, a purpose. I'm always searching or trying to acquire an answer in dreams. I just don't. I don't just explore. That would seem to suggest TE, maybe. Purposed dreams. Dreams contain useful info, like the winning lottery numbers. I'd like to have that kind of dream, magic dream like that. Most of my dreams are about doing stuff with my friends at future events. That would suggest maybe FE fourth or potentially NE fourth. I don't know. NI fourth? I'm not sure. Is any type more likely to lucid dream easily? I don't know. I think don't smoke weed would help. I wonder how TE dreams would look like. My dreams are actually real adventures, and I love nightmares since I wake up with big relief when I notice that I'm healthy and alive after that. TE dreams are like, oh gosh, looks like this step here on the stairs is broken through. We're gonna need to remove this plank, and we're gonna need to put some new planks there. You just want to dream that through. How boring would that dream be? FE dream nightmare is everybody sees you naked. Or it's just an FE dream. But it's always in a movie-like format, like Brenda above. I don't really have very movie-like dreams when I do dream. They're pretty not the word, I'm not looking for scattered, but pretty staccato in some sense. Like they jump all over the place, pretty quick, pretty confused. Dreams are usually about me doing things I need to do, clean the car, buy food, but mail in the mail. Nightmares are consequences of not doing those things. I've had those kind of nightmares before too. I've had any dreams that are adventurous. I also have FE and SI dreams. I usually hate them. Aren't we all mentally ill though? I'm not. I'm mentally well. Thanks for the reassurance. I often lucid dream. They are fun. Mine usually have a lot of symbols about morality. When I do lucid dream and have in the past, it always gets turns. You know what happens in a lucid dream. Oh, really? I'm kind of lucid dreaming? Hello there, Julie. So I asked you if you think one work is better than another. It's hard for you to answer. From what I recall, I could be wrong. I believe I'm an NFJ type as I've been thinking it over. You might be an ENFJ. My dreams are always set in the past because I can't answer things on the spot. I don't shoot out ideation like NE does. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean anything with the NFJs because NFJs can be quite good at it in the fifth or sixth. At least have some manner of displaying it. I think I've noticed too about weed suppressing dreams now that you mention it. Yeah, I've definitely made that correlation on multiple occasions when I've put and resumed and stuff. My dreams are about traveling somewhere far away and realizing I forgot to pack a suitcase. I have no idea what I'm doing or where I'm supposed to be. You are in Iceland. You're there to tag polar bears. And the terrible thing is you left the tags in the suitcase. My dreams are set in past locations, mine too, for sure. Most of the time they're in like childhood locations. I dream a ton and always remember them in the morning, but you probably ideate in your head about your emotions. Do you do that, Spacey? I don't know. You mentioned that INFJs look a certain way. Do ISFJs and ISFPs look in your experience? ISFJs look like they're kind of thick. You know, they're kind of womanly and matronly a little bit, rounder, big boobed, and sexy, you know, like loafy. They're like, you know, they're like mom. ISFPs, they're usually sexy as hell. I don't know. They're little playthings. Weed definitely suppresses dreams or makes us forget to remember them. When quitting weed for 2 weeks, the nightmares came in full effect and it gets calmer over time. Yeah, they come back in a blast when you quit for a couple of days. I smoke heavy, but almost every night I remember a dream. Well, good for you, Deep Brown. You should got good memory for dreaming. You should collect them all into a single memory to compress space. No, all I do is theorize internally all day. Well, what are you theorizing though? What does theorizing mean to you? Does it mean speculative theorizing? Like maybe we can open our third chakra, or does it mean negationary theorizing? Like we definitely can't open our third chakra. I had caught up. Once or twice I dreamed about things before they happened. It was very interesting. That's called prophecy. My dreams are about past interactions or solving a problem from the past for the future. Sometimes relationships with people. My dreams help me comprehend life. It's just Zandy. You want to call me Zandy Mandy? You want to call me Pandy Zandy? You want to call me Zandy Sandy Sandy Candy? No, it's just Zandy. So, High Devilist, INTP here. My dreams are usually pretty elaborate. Play that like a movie. I think mine maybe used to more than they do now. I think my old brain probably is so clogged with bong resin at this point that the dreams just sort of packed it in and we're like, fuck it. Do you dream a dream of wonder? Do you wonder about your dreams? Do you think you're in a chakra? Learn what all it means by dreaming in the nighttime, by dreaming while asleep with your colors and your words and your busy feet. Who here has restless leg syndrome? Anybody? Who thinks restless leg syndrome is contagious? Who would like to contract restless leg syndrome if you were to have an opportunity to go to bed with a supermodel that you found very sexually attractive, but you knew that you were going to contract restless leg syndrome from her? Would you do it? Big question. Big question. How much does the restfulness of your legs matter to you? How much? How much does the restfulness of your legs matter to you? This is a question that has plagued mankind for generations. I think that's why Julius Caesar took over those other lands. His legs were restless. Do you have that? Does somebody have it? I don't know. It sounds so funny. It's such a funny name for a disorder, right? Imagine somebody like sleeping and going, ha cha 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 cha. I only get restless legs when drinking NyQuil. And NyQuil keeps you up all night. That's backwards of what it's supposed to be. I know it was discussed earlier, but as far as mental disease goes, is OCD and ADD associated with the NHP at all? ADHD is associated with the NHP. I don't think OCD is. And ADD, there's some question as to what's meant by that. Okay, here. I had this psychotic nightmare of this patient being tied to a hospital bed. He had his eyes gouged out by this maniac doctor. The doctor then poured blood into the patient's eye sockets. Well, that's the best treatment for wounded eye sockets. Fred Astaire all night long on my sleep number, yo. You know, I'm dancing, I'm tapping, I'm doing the dance. I'm Fred Astaire. My number's 8 on my sleep number. How long have you been doing these videos? I've been making videos for about 4.5 years or so, but I've been doing the live streams are a much more recent phenomenon. I'd say a few weeks now I've probably been doing them. because I didn't like to do them until they came up with the new kind of live stream where you just have to use your webcam. You don't have to set up this encoder to send to be a go-between between your computer and the YouTube live streaming thing, which you used to have it set up. I did have it so set up, but it gave me periodic tech problems and didn't run as well as this thing does. So this makes it easy. So I just go ahead and do it now a lot. And it's a lot of fun for me. I enjoy it more than any other kind of video making. Surprisingly, it's like, even though I consider it an indulgence, it does about as well as the other videos too. I mean, kind of it does well on a different metric, but with super chats as well, it's totally worth doing, and I really enjoy it. And it seems like I'm just playing. I do it while in bed trying to fall asleep and don't do it much in the day. You talk about sex. Gene Kelly says, Brenda Dean. I never theorized about possibilities in the external world. I don't theorize about what's going on underneath the surface of real life. Well, what's real life then, if not external world? Is it just yourself? I should try that. I just rarely take any meds. Yeah, what you need is just some good stern exercise, Sheila. You go outside and you run around, and then you'll be tired. The most important part is your position and feelings in the stream. My position is from behind, and my feelings are, oh yeah. Don't take sleep medication. It's a bad idea. Just take that stuff, melatonin. I have sleep paralysis more than I dream. It's really annoying. I have sleep paralysis sometimes too. Throw out a whole bottle of Oxy because I didn't do well with meds. Your ESTP husband would. Yeah, okay. I really should go. Thank you, Brenda Dean. So this was a lot of fun. I appreciate everybody being here. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. Check out those links if you want. Evelyn, I haven't forgotten about you if you're still here. And everybody else, have a pleasant afternoon. I got to go eat something and go to work.